Everybody, welcome to another edition of Heart to Heart. My name is Elmira. I am your host on this show. We share stories of breakthrough, and today is actually a special edition. I am going to share my breakup story because I don't know if you know it. You may and you may not, but I will, in today's Heart to Heart, going to give you some background of my story, how I recovered, and just answer some questions about why I do this work and how I came to help people through their breakups. I knew it was over before it was actually over. Have you ever felt that? That's how I felt years ago during my relationship. It's like I had this inner knowing before me and my ex, me and him called it quits. I knew it was over before it was actually over. And I didn't always trust my intuition. I didn't always trust my inner guidance. I knew it was there. I would go with it sometimes, but it wasn't an automatic thing. But that's where I started the story. I knew it was over before it was actually over. Me and my ex, we dated for 4 years. We lived together. We created some songs together. We both shared a love for music. We actually met at Macy's while we were working at Macy's and decided to form a relationship. We had so many things in common, just so many things in common. It was overall a great relationship. I was in my 20s. It was my first time living away from home outside of college. So you can imagine being in this type of long-term committed relationship. I had to learn a lot of new stuff. Me and him had our challenges for sure. But here's one thing, I never thought we would break up. I didn't. I saw us getting married. I saw us having kids. I saw us doing all kinds of things together. And it just came a moment. There was some cheating on his part, and I thought we could recover from that. And there was just all kinds of stuff. I was in a music group at the time, and when the breakup happened, I didn't think I could handle one more thing because let's flash back to that year. It was 2008. I was working full time at the Doubletree Hotel. I was also going to massage school full time in the evenings. So my days look like 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. So I was doing that, working full time, going to massage school full time. And in addition, I was creating an album with my group mate at the time. I was in a group. So much. When that breakup happened, I was like, how can I handle one more thing? But we know God gives us what we can handle. And somehow I managed the breakup. It didn't start out well. It definitely did not start out well. I was in despair. I was upset. I was angry. I was resentful. I was hopeful, meaning, okay, this can't be the truth. This cannot be the end. That's what I mean by being hopeful. It was so many emotions happening during that breakup because we had to decide who was going to keep what from our apartment, who was going to take the TV, this furniture, the bed, the this. How are we going to split things up? Because we had shared space for years. And if you know what I mean, you can You can attest to that. You know what it's like to have to split up your belongings, to have to split up your life, to separate from something you thought was going to last. The grief. Grief was another emotion that I dealt with during the breakup. And part of that grief was, how am I going to move on? How am I going to adjust to life without him? And it took me a while to move on. I mean, years to move on. I actually had to move to another state to move on. And some of you may say, well, you didn't have to move. Well, it's part of my story. I ended up moving from Virginia to Nashville. I didn't know at the time that it would be so instrumental in my healing and recovery, but it really was that moving to a new city. That's why I always preach movement, massage, and music are part of healing your heart after a breakup. So the grief set in, everything set in. And of course we came to the day where it was the final day. I didn't want to leave. And we did go through this period of this back and forth. There was breakup sex. I had to see him at a wedding one time because we performed together for one of our colleagues. And I just wanted him back. There was this longing. It was just so many emotions. Now I want to address some questions that you may have, or people have actually asked me about my breakup story. So the first question I want to answer is, why did we break up? We broke up because we started to be incompatible. Isn't that why you break up? But I can say specifically, there was the cheating, there was blame on my part too. If you were here for the earlier part of the story, I was doing a lot. So wasn't really committing a lot of time to the relationship. So that led to the breakup. Those two major things, his infidelity and then me being so busy and unfocused on the relationship. Next question. How did I feel? I talked a little bit about this previously. I felt heartbroken. I felt grief. I felt sadness. I even felt hopeful because I thought we would get back together. Don't you feel that sometimes? You're like, oh, we can rekindle that. It depends on the severity of the breakup, like what led to you ending the relationship in the first place. But for me, this went on for years. These feelings of hope. After I moved to Nashville, I'm talking almost 7 years, there was some hope because I had connection to his mom. I would actually give my ex's mom massages, so I would still see her. And then, of course, my family was still connected to him. But I felt all kinds of emotions after the breakup. And I felt fat. That's not necessarily an emotion, but I did feel overweight because I was. I didn't realize how much of what I was holding on to from the relationship actually showed up as weight on my body. I had to drop almost 40 pounds. Yeah, imagine that. I'm only 5'2", and I had to release that weight. I felt a lot. Next question. What lessons did I learn? This is my favorite part. The first lesson I learned is, and you see me, I got a couple of notes here so I don't skip over anything. Grief is a process. Breakup grief, I always say, is similar to a death. And it's also worse than a death because at least with the death of a person leaving this world, you can talk to people about it. But when it comes to breakup grief, Many of your friends, many of your colleagues, many of your parents, everybody around you just kind of poo poo it and say, move on. He was no good for you. She was no good for you anyway. Who cares about the divorce? Divorce is final, so you should be over it. But breakup grief is a process. We go through the same cycles you would as a death. The bargaining, the shock, the everything, because that was me too. I didn't think we would break up. I went through the shock. But understand, you're going to experience this process. It's not going to be an overnight thing unless you tell yourself, I'm not going to sit in this heartbreak. I'm not going to sit here. I'm not going to stay here for 3 years like Elmira did, or 7 years like Elmira did. Understand that it's a process. That was the first lesson I learned. Second lesson, to love me even more. In that relationship, I put a lot of focus on him. And this came from my upbringing. It came from what I saw on television and in the movies. My idea of what a romantic relationship should look like was just like so focused on the man, so focused on my partner. I was like, I got to do this for him. I'm not even worried about myself. I just want to make sure I'm being a good girlfriend. And it was just so hyper focused on the outer part, so hyper focused on him. And I wasn't really doing a lot of internal loving. I wasn't speaking to myself in a loving way because it wasn't something I learned to tell myself I'm beautiful. I was seeking him to tell me that I'm beautiful, not to say, you are beautiful, you are gorgeous, you're dynamic. So I would get upset and give him the silent treatment when I didn't hear those things or when I didn't experience those things from the outside. But in that relationship, a big, big lesson I learned after doing my own healing, moving to a new state, getting in all kinds of different modalities, massage therapy, breath work, compassion key, you name it. I love myself now. I can sincerely say that. And without that breakup, I don't know if I could have gotten to that place of loving me first. We hear this all the time, like, oh yeah, self-care, self-love, da 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 da. You have to, because our outside world is nothing but a mirror to what we are experiencing in the inside. So when it came to this particular breakup and everything that my ex and I endured, it was a symptom of what was going on inside of me. And with me learning to love myself, to appreciate my no hips and my bow legs and just everything about me, my voice, my singing voice, my ambition, my laugh. It took that relationship to teach me that lesson, love myself. That's the second lesson. Third lesson, take responsibility. Many times in the relationship, we want to blame the ex. And that was me at first. First step of the breakup was me like, it was his fault. He cheated. If he wouldn't have cheated, we'd still be together today. Then I had to do some reflection and was like, Elmira, and I call it owning your shit. I had to own it and say, what did you do to make this relationship go awry? There were many things that I did. I gave him the silent treatment. I was working, like I said, I was doing things that did not contribute to the relationship. I was not communicating well what was going on. I was making my music a priority over him, like going on trips and doing things. And mind you, I talked about my schedule. My schedule was like hectic every day, every day, every day. And I was making everything else a priority over the relationship. I learned to take responsibility for those things. Do some internal reflection. I was just watching King Simon and his topic today. Let me see what it was something like internal conflict. Yeah, that was the topic. I had to deal with my own internal conflict. I learned that as a valuable lesson from my breakup. That was the third lesson. Take responsibility, Elmira, because it's not your parents' fault. It's not the church's fault. It's not God's fault. It's not money's fault. It's not where you live, how you grew up, because you're black, because you're female. No, I had to take responsibility, and I challenge you to take responsibility for what occurred in your life, a breakup, a death. You lost the job. You lost your business. You don't have a great relationship with your children. Take responsibility. What areas of that can you take responsibility for? The fourth lesson is ask for support. And I'm still working on this too. I can be hyper independent. It's part of what I learned growing up. It's part of my personality. I won't necessarily attach that to my personality now. I used to just blame it, going back to the blame thing. I used to just blame it. Oh, it's because I'm this way and I'm an artist and I'm an introvert that I don't like to ask for help or I don't like to ask for support. But no, I ask for help now. It used to be a challenge, like with my now boyfriend. It used to even be a challenge previously for me to just ask, can you open this jar for me? I'm like, no, I can open the jar myself. But the realization is, I need help. I need assistance with ideas. I need assistance with physical things. I need assistance with my emotions. I need assistance with my business. I need assistance with understanding. What do you think about this? Give me your viewpoint before I make a decision. That was something I was not doing before, asking for support. Because asking for support means you have to be open. You have to trust. You have to say, I give over a part of myself or a part of this responsibility to the other person. And you not just saying, oh, me, I can handle it all. I'm empowered. And yes, I am. I'm empowered. I can do all things through Christ who strengthened me. I can do all things because I am. The God is in me. Yes. But I also need support. I also need help. That was one of the valuable lessons I learned. And I will add to this too. I didn't write this down as a lesson, but along with the loving myself, I learned to establish a self-caring routine because I was always working out and doing those things, but I didn't necessarily have a specific regimen with my when it came to my emotions, like when it came to my spiritual well-being. I grew up Christian, so yes, I had those practices in place, going to church, reading the Bible, da 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 da. But when it came to self, I didn't always have that. I learned to do spiritual baths. I learned to have affirmations I can say on a daily basis. And now I've even refocused on my beauty affirmations because I've seen, okay, you're dipping in that area, Elmira, you can build that back up. And it was that relationship which gave me a barometer, gave me a thermometer of how am I feeling? I was able to start gauging that without looking for the approval from a partner or looking for the approval from anybody on the outside. I have my own internal compass that says, how do you feel? What's going on? And it's not because so and so didn't give me a compliment or this person didn't like my post or I'm not getting this many hours of quality time. None of that. I internalize that with my self-care routine. It helps me to care for myself. I know when I'm slipping now because I've done it for so many years. I've given careful attention to these things to recognize when something is not right, to recognize when something does not feel right in my body. How did I bless my ex? This is a moniker I have because there was a while that I could not bless my ex. I just blamed him for everything. The biggest part of blessing my ex was me taking responsibility. And once I understood that it was not all him, things shifted, things changed, and I could see the good in that relationship. I could be fully healed. I didn't have to. I'll tell you about a time right after the breakup. It was some month, actually some years. I was on Facebook, logged on Facebook, and we were still Facebook friends at the time. And I see this ultrasound picture that he shared. And here I am sitting in the break room at Macy's because I was working there at the time, eating my lunch, scrolling on Facebook, and I see that ultrasound picture. Immediate tears. My heart ached again because I still felt a connection to him. And what went through my mind was that was supposed to be our baby, even though we broke up many years before that. It was in that moment I knew I was not healed yet. I knew I still was placing blame on him. If you would fast forward years from that circumstance of me sitting in the sitting in the break room, noticing that ultrasound picture, I knew I was healed because his mom called me. This was years later and said, "Guess what? Your friend got married." I was like, "Yes!" I was so excited for him. I did not feel that despair, that sadness, that heartache, that the ultrasound picture. I was joyful. I was excited that he got married. So this is what I want to tell you. Have you healed? How do you know that you can bless your ex? You can do that when you get to a position of hearing about her, hearing about him, and you're not completely torn up inside. It's not affecting you. It's not ripping your heart open every time you hear their name. But that's how I did it. I blessed my ex by recommitting to myself. I hired a personal trainer. I got in things, I intentionally did things that was going to help me up level my mental, my spiritual, and my emotion. I joined Queen of Fu, a Sacred Woman, was one of the things that I did. I started to study being a death doula. I have no problem with death because this is death. Speaking of this breakup, it's the death of a relationship. I don't have I don't have issues with that now. I went and looked at my shadow. I looked at the core of this. I looked at what did I used to feel as a little girl when my parents broke up. Those things had to be addressed. It was focusing on matters like that which helped me bless my ex. And you can do it too. You can bless your ex. It begins with a decision that says, I don't want to hate anymore. I don't want to harbor these feelings in my heart. I want to be better. I want to feel lighter. I want to feel more open. I want to feel more free. I want to invite more love into my life. You can do that with principles, and I help you do that too. You can sign up for a consultation. Just direct message me, or you can go to bit.ly bit.ly/book Elmira Now. Sign up for a 15-minute consultation and we can talk about your personal breakup recovery. Because this is my story. This is how I got here. I teach you different things you can do to physically move those emotions through your body. I'm big on movement, 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 because that's what helped me. That's what I've seen that has assisted tons of other people too. You have to move. You can't sit in the grief. You got to get a massage. You got to dance. You got to do some other form of exercise. You may have to move to a new city like I did. You may have to you will have to throw away those physical memories. That's part of the moving on too. You can't just stay attached to the old you. It's sad, yes, but write about it. Writing is part of this movement too. And I wrote through music. I remember one of the songs I wrote is Crossroads. This was actually right. I began this conversation with, I knew it was over before it was actually over, like the actual date of the breakup. Crossroads was about that. It was a song I composed that was like, this is a crossroads. This is a no-go. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know if I want to stay with him or do I want to leave. It's a crossroad. It's a juxtaposition. It's like, which way do I go? Which way? And in the song, I repeatedly say, which way, which way, which way, which way. That song was healing for me, writing that song. That song even won me a competition at the ASCAP I Create Music Expo. But yeah, that is my story. Full gratitude. Thank you for listening. May you have gained at least one thing from this, because your breakup is your breakthrough. Again, this is Elmira. I help you move on and recover after your breakup. That's my story. Oh, before I close, just like when I have a guest, I got to ask myself the question, the pivotal question is, what has been your greatest lesson on this topic? What has been your greatest lesson of breakthrough on this topic? My greatest lesson is, it's never the end. When we think it's the end, we think the breakup is the end. Like, that's the end of the relationship. It's over. My life is over. I'll never love again. I'll never do this again. I'll never get this job again. I'll never have this money again. That's the lesson. It's never the end. You are forever changing. You are forever growing. You're forever expanding, even in death from this earth. You get to go on and be a new energy, a new soul. You never die. It's never the end. That's my greatest lesson. It's never the end. Until next time, this has been Heart to Heart. See you then. Peace.